Hi, this is a tutorial about how to render stereoscopic VR images with Blender that will work with VR headsets such as the Google Cardboard or the Oculus Rift. So here's how it works. First, you should get a recent build of Blender, so this will only work with Blender versions after March 11th of 2016. So in Blender 2.78, this should be in. Next, open up your favorite scene that you want to render in VR and then set the resolution to 2:1. In this case, I'm setting it to 2K, so 2048 pixels by 1024. An even better quality would be 4K, but for now 2K will do. Next, make sure that your camera is rotated correctly, so 90 degrees around the x-axis and 0 degrees around the y-axis. The z-axis defines your primary and main view. Usually, in this case, I like to use something as minus 90 degrees. Then position your camera, and it's always good if anywhere you look you have something to see in VR, and that's why I place the camera in the center of the scene. Also, it's a good idea to use human reference to position the z-axis. So in this case, I'm setting it to 1.7 meters height. So that looks good. Next, enable views. That will make sure that you will have stereoscopic rendering. So you will have a left and right camera. And if you find the red and blue view in the viewport annoying, you can turn that off in the stereoscopy settings. So you can choose just the left or right camera. So now it's time to set up your camera properties. And I like to set the perspective camera to a field of view of 90 degrees because that's more or less the field of view of the Google Cardboard. So now you can simulate how the scene will look like and behave in VR. Then you have to enable panoramic. Also make sure that the type of panoramic is equirectangular. And then the most important setting is to enable spherical stereo because that will make sure that your stereoscopic panorama will be rendered correctly. Next, you should set up the convergence plane distance, and it's a good idea to set this to an area in your image where the viewer is supposed to look mostly, so the main focus of the scene. So in this case, everything will be nice and in focus. Speaking of focus, you should avoid to use a shallow depth of field, so make sure that everything is sharp and in focus. So now let's see how this looks like in rendering. So let's make sure that all the lights are enabled and then just go to the rendered viewport. And you can see that this looks now very different than the OpenGL viewport. So this is now the equirectangular image as it would be rendered. So maybe now we can do a little test render. So let's first set the resolution to 50%. Also lower the AA samples so that it renders faster. And I think now we are ready to press F12 to render this. Now this looks a bit weird, it's red, and that's because of this little button down there. That's the stereoscopy preview button. You can disable that to just watch the left or right side of the rendering, and you can still switch that here with this little menu. So now it's time to save the image. So first I set this to JPEG because they still look good and the file size will be a little bit smaller. But more importantly, I switch this from individual to stereo 3D and then switch from anaglyph to top bottom. Because now my left side of the image will be at the top and the right side will be at the bottom. And this is a nice and square format that is also very compatible. For example, with YouTube or with apps like VRAIS, which I will come to later. So if you open the image, you can see this is now this top-bottom image, nice and square, left side top, right side the bottom. And even though we could already test this image now in a VR headset, we can also just do a final render. So let's increase the AA sample to something a little bit higher, because VR images really have to be noise-free. Noise totally kills the VR stereo effect. Also, let's increase the resolution a bit, maybe to 2K, or even better to 4K. This will render really long, but it will just look better. So I will let this rendering and then come back. So after the rendering has finished, let's save this again as a JPEG. Also set it to top bottom. Maybe one advice, if you have compositing in your scene, don't use too large glows. Keep the glow always small, because if you have a glow on the seam, like on the left and right side of the rendering, or top and bottom, this will be a visible seam when this is now stitched together as a sphere. So just keep the compositing really low and little. Now the next step is you want to view the image. Now how can you do that? Well, there are a couple of options for that. The easiest, of course, is to use the Google Cardboard. Still, to use the Google Cardboard, you will need an app for that. You can use YouTube nowadays, that works, but there's another nice way to do that, and that is to use a little app called VRAIS. VRAIS can be downloaded at the App Store or the Google Play Store, and if you install that, you can browse a public gallery of images, or you can also upload your own image and view it there. VRAIS has been developed by us, by BlendFX, and by our colleagues Mikawa, and we use it in our daily workflow to review our own images. VRAIS, by the way, is French and means true, but it also means we are awesome in space, which again is true. So there you go. VRAIS is totally free, so you just need to sign up as an artist. If you do that, just choose a username, set an email address, choose a password, agree with the terms, and then sign up. Or if you already have an account, then sign in here, and I will do that. So log in. And currently this is totally empty. This is my artist account. Of course it's empty because this is just like an example account for this tutorial. But I can go here and submit a new rendering. So I will choose a file. So this is my VR folder with the renderings. So I select this and upload. And once it finished uploading, you can enter a title and a description. So that's the BMW. This is a Blender test render. It's always nice if you enter a little description, at least if you want to publish it for the public gallery. It's nice to know which software you rendered it with and with version maybe. Of course, it's optional. One thing that you should do is to enter the convergence plane. I mean, you could also view it without setting this or keeping this as at the default, but because we have a little UI in the app, it's good if you enter the correct, or at least almost correct, convergence plane, because that will make viewing your image more pleasant. So save these, and now I can grab my phone and view this image in VR. So this is VRAIS on my phone, and you could already go ahead and watch the public gallery by going to newest or random. And then it tells you to turn the device. So we just do that, and then you have to wait a little bit until it loads. Currently we are in 2D mode, which is actually pretty good, because if you don't have a cardboard, you can still watch those images by just turning around. But you can also go to the settings and switch to VR mode. And now press OK. There you have it. That's the newest image in our app. That's the public gallery. But of course we want to view our own image. So with this little arrow I go back and then slide down the header, enter my account settings, press OK. And now currently there's a little bug, which means that when you log in the first time, the app will be stuck. So I have to just end this, start it again from scratch, and now it will log in and will start VRAIS with you being logged in. Which means that now I can go ahead and slide over. These are the favorites, which you can set in your gallery. Currently this is empty, of course. So I slide over one more time, and there's our rendering, the BMW. So I click that, choose View, then it tells me to turn the device, and to put it in my cardboard. So why don't we just do that? And there you have it. There's your rendering in VR. Of course, the experience to watch VR through a phone camera, through the cardboard on a phone is a little bit crappy, but at least you get the idea. So here's the image, and let me just look through that. And yes, that looks actually pretty nice. So that's how you can use VRAIS to watch your own VR images. If you want to publish them to the gallery, we really ask you to render in 4K and to make it as noise-free as possible. So if you have a nice scene, we really look forward to see that. So click on Publish, and then it will be in review. Me and my colleagues, we will review the images, and if it's nice, then of course we will publish it. Of course, this is not meant to be published, so just delete this rendering from VRAIS. This is just a test anyway. So we really look forward to see something from you. I hope you enjoyed the video and now have fun rendering your own VR images with Blender.